Hello again. It's nice to see you.
Hello.
I'm on about referring to obviously Sunday that obviously we bumped into each other.
Of course, yeah, it was a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting that, but it's good to see you and have a little pre-meeting before tonight's chat.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you wasn't even announced for the show, which kind of made it more fascinating. I just remember your music hitting going, oh my God, this guy's actually here.
There we go. Always keeping you on your toes.
Absolutely, of course. So, yeah, we're talking to JJ Gale. This is the 200th episode. We've got loads of stuff to talk about. Enough rambling on. Let's roll the intro. JJ, of course, mate. Absolute pleasure. How's the week been, mate?
Yeah, doing good, thanks, man. It's feeling a little bit beat up after the weekend's shows this weekend. A couple hard-hitting matches, but feeling nice and recovered now, and looking forward to sitting down and having a chat about all things wrestling.
Of course. And like I said, let's talk about that match. Sterling obviously made a nice little appearance, ran his mouth a little bit, and I think you essentially shut him up, to be honest. Talk about that.
Yeah, man. So for those of you who weren't watching the show or haven't caught it on Rev Pro On Demand, Charlie Sterling decided to return to Rev Pro. And I see what he's saying. For those of you, like I say, who haven't seen it, he came to the crowd, he interrupted our lovely ring announcer, Francesca, and sort of said, hey, look, if people want opportunities around here, this is what you do, right? Obviously referring to the Cutthroat Collective that ran through Rev Pro in a pretty brutal way. They made a name for themselves. In probably the most brutal fashion they could. Charlie didn't exactly go about things like that, but he did throw open an open challenge. And I think he probably regrets it because he had no idea that JJ Gale was backstage. As you didn't, as many of the fans didn't. Mm-hmm. But I was back there because I'm always ready. I'm always waiting for the next opportunity to prove myself and to climb up the ladder of success. And I heard open challenge, and it's almost like he put it on the plate to me. He asked for someone with some heart. He asked for someone with some soul, and hey, next thing you know, you lit a fire under me, and here I come. It was good to get in there with Charlie. It's a match that has actually meant to happen about 4 or 5 times within the last year, and for one reason or another, it hasn't happened. Whether that be injury, maybe double bookings, or whatever else. It wasn't quite the way I expected the match to go down. We both just wrestled, without our gear on. It was impromptu. We hadn't maybe probably warmed up or anything. Hence maybe why I was feeling it on Monday morning. But yeah, it was a bit of a fight. And I've got a bit of a point to prove if I'm totally honest. I've worked my ass off for the last 5 years in Rev Pro. Someone like Charlie, I think he could just walk in, get a quick, easy victory, and take his way to the top. I'm here to show that I'm somewhat of a gatekeeper in Rev Pro. I'm the heart and soul of Rev Pro. And if you want to get to the heights that he wants to get to, you got to prove yourself against me.
Absolutely. And the thing is, it was a countdown, stuff like that. Is it unfinished business with him then?
Oh, I'd say so. Like you say, for those who don't know, I had Charlie where he didn't want to be. I had him beat, and he decided to bail out of the ring and run away. So, that says it all. You come in here saying you want an opportunity, you want to prove yourself, you're the best wrestler in the world, and then you bail out of the ring as soon as you're in tough waters. So, yeah, it's unfinished business because I didn't get that visual 1, 2, 3 on him that I want to show that I can do. Expect to see more of me and Charlie Sterling, I'm sure.
Awesome. So I want to take a few steps back and talk like, how does your journey begin into wrestling?
Wow. Okay, we're taking it back. I first started training way back when, in 2015, actually. So almost 9 years ago, I took my first bump. I was only 15, 16 years old. I grew up a wrestling fan all my life. Watching the WWE on the TV, like most of us getting into it. And it was just something I'd always wanted to do, I think. From about the age of 13, I remember almost having this epiphany moment. And I can't really remember what it was that made me think that, but I just remember around that age being in like a careers class in school and everyone saying how they want to be a doctor or they want to do this or that or these conventional jobs or, well looked upon jobs in normal society. And I thought to myself, I really want to be a pro wrestler. That's what I want to be. What job would I actually want to do? And it's the first time I sort of thought that's the job I want to do. I was too scared to say anything at the time because I'm a 12, 13-year-old kid that thought he was going to get, told that's a stupid idea. So I ended up doing something else for this lesson. But I think that was the moment for me where I was like, I think this is what I want to do. You know, it's a passion of mine. It's something that I believe I've got the skill set for. And then, you know, fast forward to being 16 years old and looking for a training school. And I kind of just Googled online, where can I, you know, train to be a wrestler in the UK? Found a few different places. The most local one that I could find on this search was Pro Evolution Wrestling Academy in Gloucester. Who, on a quick side note, I believe are going through some trouble at the moment. I think their training school might have been damaged by a storm or something. I think they're in a bit of trouble there, where they've lost their training facility, and, you know, being the school that sort of brought me into the business. Obviously, I've got a bit of a, you know, affinity with them, so I think there is a crowdfunder or a GoFundMe sort of thing going. So if anyone is able to go and support them, please do. But yeah, I turned up, you know, an eagle-eyed kid, excited to step into the wrestling business, and that's kind of where it all began.
Awesome. And what was it like taking like your first match? What was that like as an experience?
The first match was very surreal. You know, it was on like a trainee show, so it wasn't major pressure, but it was still big pressure for me, because this is something, like I say, I've always wanted to do, and I want to do well, and I want to perform well. And you only ever get one first match, so you're always going to remember that match. You're always going to look back on that. I think my mum filmed it, so I've got it somewhere on tape, and by God, it's probably awful to watch. But I remember at the time afterwards, I thought it was really good. Like, I think a lot of guys might watch their first match and they're like, yeah, I'm a wrestler, you know. I was one of the only guys on the show that had proper gear. The guy I wrestled was just in his sort of combat training shoes and training t-shirt. I was like, you got to look the part, right? So I had some pretty nice gear. I went out there. I did a couple cool high-flying moves, but to be honest, it was probably trash because it's my first match. So I can't say I've watched it in a few years, but that feeling of going out there in front of a live crowd and actually, you know, being a wrestler and performing was exciting. And you kind of constantly chasing the dragon, chasing that rush of getting out in front of a live crowd and then manipulating their emotions to fit the story that you're trying to tell. It's an addictive feeling. That's why we got there week after week and kill our bodies doing it. But it's good fun.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about obviously the high flying style and stuff, because I'm a big fan of that. Talk about obviously what goes into like basically being a high flyer.
Yeah, I mean, there's high flyers that fly higher than me. You know, I don't want to just hang my hat on being sort of a high flying wrestler, although I do kind of feel like I have a lot of that in my style. I kind of see myself as a bit of a hybrid wrestler. You know, I can get down on the mat if needs be. I've got some strikes in my arsenal, and I like to obviously do those high risk, high flying moves. For me, I've always felt like I was somewhat athletic, and, you know, I grew up with a trampoline in my back garden that, you know, like a lot of wrestling fans, that turned into a wrestling ring. The ropes got put around the outside of it and everything. I was doing these flips and stuff and wrestling my brother and my friends on there, practicing all the moves I saw on TV and on YouTube and stuff. So I always felt like that kind of lended itself to that kind of style. I always felt like that's what I'd like to do in the ring. But, you know, it's a lot harder once you get in the ring to kind of pull these moves off. And, you know, wrestling rings, they hurt. You know, a lot of people seem to think, you know, it's this nice, soft, bouncy landing. It's really not. I mean, you take any normal person into a wrestling ring and get them to take a bump, I guarantee they will not want to be doing it again anytime soon. So yeah, it's difficult, and it's, for me, more than anything with wrestling, you just got to go out there and do it. You know, if you can drill stuff in training, brilliant. But when it comes to being on a show, being in front of a crowd, you just got to full send it and go for it, and not think twice about it, and you'll probably pull off what you're going to do.
Absolutely. So a couple of promotions obviously you've worked for before we talk about Red Pros. Squash the Jobber. I was looking through your career and this one caught my eye, just the name alone. Talk a little bit about this.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that, because here we have the SAJ Tag Team Championship belt. So I am a current Tag Team Champion in Squash the Jobber Wrestling. It's a great little promotion. Story behind the name, because every podcast I ever go on, they always ask about Squash the Jobber Wrestling and what's with the name. Unique choice of name for sure, but I believe the story behind it is a group of guys similar to yourself, wrestling fans that had their own podcast. They would get on and talk about wrestling together, and then I sort of thought, you know what, we want to do more than this. We want to progress, and we want to give back to especially the Italian wrestling scene, and we want to create our own promotion. You know, they had a little bit of money behind them. They set up their promotion. They got some of the best wrestlers from Europe and worldwide, to be honest. They brought in guys from America, Japan, and the European wrestling scene to sort of come together to give back to Italian wrestling, or at least that's the way I see it. You know, that they give their homegrown guys, these big stars from around the world, to learn from and to put on these great matches for the fans to enjoy. They've been around 2 or 3 years now, and I think they're really growing. Each show, it seems to be getting better with quality and the talent they're bringing over. So yeah, Honoured to be a tag team champion out there with LG. We formed GGG. It's a fun act that we do out there. So yeah, it's good fun. But like I said, questionable name. The name of the podcast, I believe, was Squash and Jobber Podcast, and they thought, hey, we'll cross the brand over to promotion, and now can't turn back. So
I mean, the key thing, it is unique, right?
That's it. People remember it, I guess. Would it be my first choice as a wrestling promotion's name? Probably not. But like I say, they put out a great product, and it really helps the Italian wrestling scene. So can't fault it, really.
Absolutely. So the big obviously company you obviously work for is Rev Pro. How did it all begin? Obviously, you working for Rev Pro.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I see Rev Pro as my home promotion. So for me, breaking into the wrestling industry, I had a bit of an idea about independent wrestling for a year or two before getting into wrestling, and then you find your little niche where you train. For me, that little Gloucester scene, and you learn your basics, and you get the odd booking here and there. But for me, when I got to about the age of 18, I realized that it was time for me to develop, to move forward, to maybe change where I am and my trajectory in the wrestling industry if I actually want to progress. So I look at the landscape and I look at places I can train and places I want to be. For me, Rev Pro is the best promotion in Europe. So I want to be there, right? That's where I want to be ultimately. Just so happens they got a training school in Portsmouth. So I'm going to go and train there, and I'm going to work my way up through the training school and try and get onto those shows. So that was sort of the plan there. So I moved to Southampton from Dorset. I did a degree in Southampton at university just to sort of have a reason to move up there. There wasn't just I'm going up there to leave everything I've got here to follow wrestling. And alongside sort of doing my degree, I trained at the Portsmouth School of Wrestling, and it was a case of starting from the bottom to where I am now, really, and just sort of working up through the school. Learning more and challenging myself to eventually getting onto the contenders division. A couple of years in the contenders. Well, I say a couple of years, about 6 months in the contenders division, and then a long pandemic. Coming out of there, doing the tag team with Callum Newman for a bit, and then breaking out to singles at the start of last year, and then this sort of slow rise that I've been on over the last year to where I am now. So that's kind of been my story in Rev Pro.
Absolutely. And I'm looking through, obviously, your matches in Rev Pro. I mean, you've been in the ring with some incredible guys. I mean, the two biggest ones I saw straight away was Zack Sabre Jr. and Will Ospreay. What's it like working with these guys?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a blessing that you can get in there, from where I was in my little pocket of the British wrestling scene to then being involved with Rev Pro, getting on these shows and getting opportunities to work with the best wrestlers in the world. It's invaluable for your growth and development as a wrestler. And it's also one of those times, like you say, when you get in there that you just realize these guys are operating on a different level. It's motivating because it makes you want to get to that point, and you also learn so much from those experiences. So yeah, it's wicked. I mean, I remember getting in there with Will, and that was probably one of the first times. Well, probably not the first time. The first time I ever felt this was wrestling a guy called Joey Legend, who you might know from like the WWF back in the day. That was the first time I wrestled a guy, and I was like, wow, wrestling, it can be so easy, and it can be like this. It was the first time I'd wrestled a really experienced guy that just held my hand through a match and said, this is what we do, and this is how easy it can be. And it was another experience like that of Will, where less so this is how easy it can be, but more so just everything. It was like, he's there for everything, and I've got to keep up, and you've got to be on it because he's just such a talented wrestler. So just experiencing that firsthand in the ring when I wrestled him, we're going back about four years now. So I was a lot further back in my development as a wrestler. But it was super motivating and then sort of a cool opportunity. It's a match I'd love to run back. Obviously, he's doing his stuff in AEW now, so it's maybe not quite as likely as it could have been maybe a year or so ago. But I'm definitely looking forward to running that back at some point in the future.
And what about Zack Sabre Jr.? Because he's obviously on top of his game as well.
Of course, yeah. No, Zach would be a good few years later. That was right at the end of last year. So that for me, it was my first chance really to get out there and sort of show the world who I am. You've got someone like Zack Sabre Jr. who's got the world's eyes on him. Just won the G1 Climax, but even a year ago is widely regarded as one of the best wrestlers in the world. So we ran a program last year, all started the Revolution Rumble. I eliminated him. I was pretty much unknown to most fans at that point. So it's quite it was quite a big chance for me to sort of show who I am on the bigger stage. We ran this whole program, ran through the Copper Box, wrestling Vegeta, and then we got to that match. And getting in there with Zach once again, he's just an absolute pro. He knows what he's doing. Makes you look great, but also makes you work hard, and then makes you realize there's levels to this game. So yeah, really cool experience in wrestling guys like that, and hopefully there's many more to come.
Absolutely. As well, I mean, we could talk the whole hour just about your Rev Pro matches. I mean, Luke Jacobs is another one, Ricky Knight Jr., that's two guys up and coming. I mean, what's it working with like guys like that?
Yeah, great. I mean, I feel like that's your current crop. You know, you've got your superstars that have come through the scene, gone elsewhere, and really they're flying the flag for British wrestling around the world as bona fide superstars of the industry. And then you got guys like Luke and Ricky that are the top stars in the UK right now, and they're right on the bridge of going out mainstream, and they just are breaking out other places. So yeah, to sort of get in there with those guys and prove that you can hang with them and you can have, you know, big matches like I had with the two of them over the last few years is cool. And I feel like we feel like we're in it together. We want to show that the British wrestling scene right now is as strong as it's ever been. And we want to prove that this is an era that people will look back on, and names that people will look back on in 5 or so years' time, when we're hopefully all on to bigger and better things, and look back and be like, this is where it started, and we got to watch this in these intimate venues and watch these guys develop and grow right in front of our eyes.
Awesome. And with obviously Rev Pro, you get the chance to work with New Japan stars. And the first match which caught my eye, and a lot of fans asked me about this, was Ishii. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, probably my most recent big match, only about a month ago now, wrestling Tomohiro Ishii at the Copper Box. Yeah, amazing experience. You know, once again, a goat of the sport, you know, one of the real legends of Japanese wrestling, of professional wrestling. So another opportunity for me to get in there to learn, first of all, but also show that I can step in there with someone like that and deliver a performance that people are going to remember, and a match that people are going to remember and enjoy. And I think we did that. So I'm really happy to have smashed that one out of the park. Yeah, awesome experience, you know, just to get in there, and especially somewhere like the Copper Box, you know, probably the biggest arena in European wrestling. You had 4,000 plus in there, screaming, and there's something about standing in the ring, hearing Tomohiro Ishii's music hit, seeing him walk out to the ring, stone faced, as the nickname says, and just feeling that energy and that vibe in the arena and just soaking it up. I was fired up, and then the match gets underway, and when you get hit by Ishii, you got no chance but to fight back. So yeah, really enjoyed that match. Really proud of it, and looking forward to the next big one.
Absolutely. So, for fans who's obviously not familiar with yourself, why should fans go check out JJ Gale? So this is kind of like a way to promote yourself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're not familiar with me, then get to know. I am the next big thing to come out of British professional wrestling. I've been applying my trade for some time, and I feel like it's just the last year or so that I've really started to have things click, to get these big matches, these big moments, and I'm ready to take over the wrestling scene here in the UK and beyond. So get on the train while you can. There's going to be big things, exciting things coming. I promise to entertain you and leave you remembering me and my match each time you come to a wrestling show. And things are only going to get bigger and better from here. So jump on the train early and watch this ride with me.
And he's got the best entrance song. I'm just going to point that out.
And there's that. Come on, big up to Quintana with Burned. Yeah, hell of an entrance theme.
It is, of course. So
people singing it all around the UK. So get involved.
It is a banger of a song, by the way. It's probably one of my favourites.
Thank you.
Awesome. So before you obviously go out, obviously to wrestling, do you have like a pre-match type thing? Do you get yourself into a zone, listen to music, any of that type of thing?
I've never done the music thing. A few guys will put on their headphones and stuff. I've never really been into that. For me, it's kind of just being focused and in the zone. Visualizing what I'm going to go out there and do. I like to get dressed first, obviously, and then just visualize how it's going to go out there, visualize the success, those responses I'm looking for from the audience, and then as we're getting closer, you get that adrenaline start to pump in, a little bit of excited energy. Do a quick warm up, just kind of get the blood flowing. For me, that's essential. I know a lot of guys are just kind of going out there, but for me, I need to get that blood flowing around the body. Even if something as simple as a few squats, push up, stuff like this, just to sort of warm myself, my body up, and just kind of get myself sorted. And then finally we'll tape up and wet the hair and go on out there and do the thing. Put the jacket on, hear that music hit, and like you say, I mean, I'm blessed to have that entrance theme from Quintana, because every time I hear that music hit, it reminds me of all those big matches I've had. It reminds me of every time I go out there, and it just kind of gets me hyped and ready to go. And then before you know it, you're out through the curtain and you're away with it. So yeah,
absolutely. So talk a little bit about your ring gear and stuff like that, because it is very unique.
Yeah, so it's just like everything in wrestling. It's a journey of development. you know, no one's ring gear initially is, what it's about that evolution, and you add to it over time. And for me, I try and be a little bit different, and that's especially with the ring jacket. What I'm looking for was just ways to stand out and be a little bit different. I looked at some of the people that entrance gear and stuff I liked as a fan, and tried to kind of just get the little different bits of that, and just say, look, I went to my gear designer, had a graphic designer sort of create the design, and then went to a gear maker, Lou Bird over in America, and he actually created it. So I kind of said, look, here's the sort of vibe I'm looking for. Here's what I am as a wrestler. Here's maybe the color schemes. Here's some of the jackets and outfits that I like. We can kind of mash this all up together. Hopefully we come up with something original and different that, will make you stand out on a show, and will be something that people can latch onto and remember, and kind of be something signature about you. So that's kind of what I'm looking for with my gear.
Absolutely. It's awesome. Any injuries? I imagine you've got many injuries.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was feeling a bit beat up Monday morning, but hey, what's new? I'm feeling good now, feeling fresh, ready to go for the weekend. No major injuries at the moment, thankfully. A few niggling injuries that kind of just are there in the background. But it's just about looking after your body, when you're not in the ring. For me, physio, stretching, consistent training, good sleep, diet, all of these things are important to kind of keep, as professional wrestlers, this is everything. Our body is what we make our money with. It's what we rely on. It's everything. If your body gives up, then we really don't have anything. So looking after my body is something that I try and put at the forefront. But thankfully, I've never had too many serious injuries. The worst I've had, a few concussions, a sprained ankle and a sprained MCL, which at most have put me out for a month or two. So I've been lucky, really, touch wood, to never be out for a long, sustained period of time, because I think every wrestler, that's their biggest fear, being on the shelf, missing shows, being out of that bubble, and we're all constantly, weekend after weekend, just grinding, trying to move up the ladder, add to our game, and to kind of be put away from that, I imagine it's going to be very difficult. So fingers crossed we stay healthy and we keep going.
Absolutely. So being a wrestler and stuff like that, do you get the chance to watch wrestling from a fan's point of view?
I think it changes once you get into wrestling. Your viewing experience of wrestling will be different. It's the same as anything, I guess. For actors, once you learn about the craft of acting, you can't really watch film and TV and stage shows the same, because you're looking at it through a different point of view. If you're a filmmaker, I imagine you're looking at each cutscene and each creative choice differently. For pro wrestlers, we're going to look at things differently. There's times that you do get sucked into it and you become that fan again, and you just lose yourself in great professional wrestling. I love that, but obviously a lot of the time you're analyzing, you're looking at why people are doing something at certain points, and how maybe you could apply that to your work, and how you could translate that into you and your act and your professional wrestling. So yeah, the viewing experience is definitely different, but if anything, it almost makes it more enjoyable to watch for me. Sit down and pick apart great matches. For me, if I'm wanting to watch it more of a fan, I might go for more nostalgic stuff. Maybe something I would have watched as a kid, and that kind of brings back all those nostalgic memories. But yeah, for sure, the viewing experience changes once you become a wrestler.
Come on, then. What's the nostalgic stuff for you?
For me, when I first got into pro wrestling, it was probably 2006 WWE. So for me, my first big event that I remember was WrestleMania 22. So something like that would be great. I love the triple threat, Rey Mysterio, Kurt Angle, and Randy Orton. That's a real nostalgic match for me, because that's one of those first big matches I remember. Rey Mysterio being one of my favorite wrestlers as well. I think he's just such a legend of the sport, how he's revolutionized the art form of professional wrestling, and how he's managed to, the first person really to successfully merge on such a grand stage the style of lucha libre and that Mexican wrestling style to mainstream American wrestling in TV wrestling, and become a bona fide star. So yeah, that's that sort of era, I guess. But there's other things as well, So, but that's probably my most nostalgic stuff. Takes you back to being a kid when you first fell in love with the sport of pro wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, Rey Mysterio's great. I mean, he's done so many great things in his career, and he's rightly joined the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't complain about that one. So the next question is, in this, I get mixed answers on this one. What would you say the biggest misconception is about a wrestler?
Ooh, that's a great answer. Great question. Misconception. I mean, I guess it depends who's looking at it. I think from an outsider's point of view, somebody who's not in wrestling, they just think it's juiced up meatheads that go out and pretend to beat each other up. There's an element of that for sure, but I think a lot of people that aren't in wrestling or have really like taken the time to be curious and look into what pro wrestling is have a very set view on what it is, and it's really not. And I think there's all you have to do is delve into a podcast interview or talk to someone, or even something like the Wrestlers series that came out on Netflix the last year or so, something like that, which delves into what it's like to come up as a professional wrestler, and you can see that there's actually a lot more to it than maybe what meets your eye or what your preconceived ideas are. It's an art form for me, and I'll always try and shout that to the cows come home. Really, what we do is complex. From the physicality to the psychology standpoint, to the business side of it. There's so much that goes into being a successful pro wrestler. And I don't necessarily put myself in that category yet because I'm nowhere near where I need to be. But I know how hard and difficult it is and how many pieces of the puzzle you need to put together to even get to this point. So to get to this point, the very top where the greats are, you've got to have so much respect for what these guys are doing. So yeah, I'd say anyone who's not interested, just be curious and look into it. For wrestling fans or biggest misconceptions, I don't know. It's hard, like you say. It's difficult as well to see. It's an important thing to be able to do is to look from that fan's point of view, because once you're wrapped up in it as a professional wrestler behind the scenes working on stuff, you've got that vision and those goggles on. It's sometimes hard but important to kind of take them off and put those fan goggles back on and sort of be like, okay, let's look at this from a fan's perspective, because at the end of the day, we're all fans and we all enjoy certain things, and to be able to see that and try and get behind that and understand how that can translate to you, I think is really important.
That's a great answer. Probably one of the best I've heard. So I appreciate that so much. I think I kind of know the answer to this next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are you critical of your own work in the ring?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you've got to be, right. If you want to be better at anything, you've got to be self-critical. It's about finding that balance, though, of being critical and being, looking at how you can positively improve your work, but also not being so down on yourself. I mean, there's certain matches that I'll have, and I might come back and be like, oh, damn, that really didn't go well. I could have done this, I could have done that. I wish this had happened. I wish that had happened. And in that moment right afterwards, I can be feeling really down about it. And then I might wait. I might talk to a few people about it. I might see some feedback from some of the fans who, at the end of the day, are the audience that are consuming the product. And then I'll watch it back myself with a fresh set of eyes a few hours later or the next day, and I'll be like, actually, yeah, sure, that happened and that could have been different, but actually, that was good. So I try not to be too hard on myself, but also I'm always looking to find things I could have done better or things I could have done differently to sort of achieve the ultimate goal of whatever I'm trying to achieve in the ring. So yeah, I think to develop anything, you've got to be self-critical. So that's a huge part of growing as a professional wrestler.
Absolutely. So a few little more questions and begin to wind down and stuff like that. So for people obviously thinking about getting into wrestling, what would you say to them?
Take a leap of faith, go for it. I mean, everyone who is a professional wrestler at some point thought, I can do this. I'm going to give it a go. I think if you're going to do it, go for it. I think if anything in life, especially something like this, where it's a career that's very difficult to get into and succeed in, you've got to put everything into it. If I'm totally honest with myself, I don't think I was putting everything into it for the first few years that I was into this. There was certainly a point where I maybe became self-aware of that and decided to just put a lot more energy and effort in. And I think there's always more that can be done. If I'm totally honest with myself now, there is more that I can do, and there always should be, and there always is. And if there's not, then you kind of get into that stagnant point where you're not looking to grow, because there's always something you can do to sort of develop and grow and get better. So yeah, put everything into it, work hard, listen, pick apart the brains of the people that have been doing this. This is a skill and an art form that has been passed down from generations. And you can only learn by listening and making mistakes. So don't be down on the mistakes you make. I've gotten better because of making mistakes in the ring and outside of the ring and being like, shouldn't have done that. But then you don't do it next time because you made that mistake. So I think that's a really key thing to remember. And just work hard, take it seriously, respect the job, and have fun. That's the main thing as well. It's something I try to remind myself as well. You get caught up in just wrestling and how it can be, and when you're so focused on getting to a certain place or being at a certain level, it can sort of at times take away that enjoyment. But you need to remind yourself, actually, this is just really fun, and if you're not having fun, what are you doing? So I always try and remind myself that before I go out. And if I'm ever not feeling great or too positive about it, I try and remind myself, look, here I am. And if I told myself 3, 5, 10 years ago I'd be here, then I'd be real happy and hey, enjoy it and keep pushing forward.
Absolutely. So this kind of leads me obviously to the final few questions. Is here we are now, 9 years obviously in your wrestling career. You've had some incredible matches from Rev Pro and everything. What's next for you, man?
Hopefully big things. You know, I've got a couple championships under my belt now. That SAJ Tag Team Championship. We've got the Southwest Wrestling Heavyweight Championship. But I'm looking for more. I'm looking for, you know, a championship in Rev Pro. You know, I'm the heart and soul of Rev Pro, and I'd love to sort of establish myself as a champion there. I want to keep growing my, you know, my fan base, my following, and getting out different places. You know, there's a few other big promotions in Europe that I'd like to get into and sort of keep showing what I can do. But just keep growing and developing. You know, I keep going back to that, but I think that's really what it's about. You know, at the end of the day, I want to be a star in this industry like everyone does. So it's just about those big matches, those big moments, delivering, and just creating this thing that I want. This whole, there's so many aspects that make a successful professional wrestler. So it's just about working on each of those aspects and just growing and developing. But I think if I'm looking at my career trajectory each year on year, things have got better. Bigger matches and everything seems to be going in the right direction. So just keep pushing forward in that direction. And like I say, if you're not on board, get on board, because I think there's going to be some cool things coming.
Of course. And what about opponents? Is there any like people that you obviously like to face?
I mean, I've got dream opponents. You know, guys like Will Ospreay, Pac, Rey Mysterio. There's a lot of talent in Europe as well that I'd like to get in there with across the board. Guys that I've crossed paths with before that I'd love to get back in there with again. Guys like Luke Jacobs, Michael Oku. Guys I haven't got in there with, guys like Derice. Guys like Kiro from France that maybe are just sort of that, you know, just breaking out in their scene. But I'd love to sort of bring them over to the UK and sort of get more exposure here. You know, we've crossed paths once or twice. Someone like LJ Cleary is out in Noah. You know, I'm just thinking off the top of my head of guys, but there's a whole host of guys I'd love to get in there. There's such a wide talent pool of wrestlers around the world, and I want to test myself against all of them. So bring it all.
There you go. Maybe in a year's time you'll have like tons of more matches. Maybe we'll invite you back on next year.
Yeah, I just hope so.
Of course. So I was to say if there's anything you want to promote, but we have no images to show. But you can go ahead and like promote some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some stuff coming up. So this weekend we have Big Powerhouse Wrestling in Portsmouth for anyone who's down in the Portsmouth, Hampshire area. So that's going to be going on Saturday at the Fratton Community Centre in Portsmouth. So you can catch me there. Sunday I'm going to be in London with RevPro live at the 229. So if you're a season ticket holder, make sure you're there. If you're not, get a ticket because it always delivers. Following weekend we are once again out to Squash and Jobber Wrestling, SAJ, to defend these bad boys in a unification match. Me and LG taking on Connor Mills and Spencer in a unification match. The 2 tag titles over there, so we're looking for the big win there next Saturday. And then the very next day, back here in my adopted hometown of Southampton for RevPro. And the following weekend's Global Wars for RevPro. A match has not been announced yet, but you best believe I'm going to do everything I can to get a huge match on there. CMLL, New Japan, RevPro. It's going to be a huge show. Talent from literally all around the world coming together for a super show. So I'm going to want to be a part of that. And then to close out the month.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt them. But I'm planning to be at Global Wars as well.
Sick. Yeah, as you should be up in the Doncaster. First time for RevPro being in that venue. First time for me personally wrestling in the Doncaster Dome. I've heard and seen great things. So I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a big show. And then, yeah, like I say, to close out the month, I'm going to be at Rings of Europe in Austria, ticking off another country, which would be real cool, seeing some new fans. So really look forward to that. And then, yeah, plenty more dates in November and December. Obviously, there's merch available, T-shirts like this, signed 8x10s, all sorts of other things, dog tags and whatever. Find me on social media. The deal's at the bottom of the screen, and follow the links to merch there and everything else. But, yeah, just keep up to date with all things JJ Gale, and I appreciate everyone's support. It honestly means the world to me, and really appreciate it all the way.
What we'll do is we'll put all the description to all his socials in the description of this video, so people can click on it, go find it, and do you know what I mean, and go support him, because he's an incredible guy. Like I said, I saw him in the ring. I'm a massive fan of his work, and JJ, it's been an absolute pleasure for the 200th episode of this show.
Well, it's an honour to be here. Episode 200. It's got to be a big one. So hopefully we've delivered.
It has, mate. Absolutely. JJ, thank you so much for mate. As always, good luck with everything.
Thank you very much. Good to chat to you, and I'll see you at a show or on the podcast soon.
Cheers, guys.